Aging Matters on BCTV is supported by the Berks County Area Agency on Aging.
Hello, and welcome to Aging Matters. This show is sponsored by and provided by the Berks County Area Agency on Aging. My name is Ann Barlet. I'm the Public Advocacy and Outreach Manager for the agency. Our show today is all about healthy living and brain and body, and it is part 2 in our 2-part series. Our first part was on basically Alzheimer's disease, understanding the 10 warning signs and where we go from there. This part will hopefully discuss the reducing risks and prevention for Alzheimer's disease. And I have with us our guest, Kellie Butsack, who is the Associate Director of Programs for the Delaware Valley Chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. Thanks so much, Kellie, for being here again with us to share this great information. And today, people don't even think about prevention of Alzheimer's. I think we think, we got it, and we got to go from here. And I'm old and I'm aging, and so that might happen. And so I think it's a great topic to talk about today. So thank you, Kellie, for being here. And I'm going to turn it right to you as far as talking a little bit about beginning of really we can prevent this or reduce our risks.
Well, yeah, I would say, and thank you for having me, Ann, especially to talk. I love talking about this topic of risk reduction with regard to Alzheimer's and dementia. And I'm going to pull up my slides here and we'll jump right in. So, of course, aging and health, our health as we age depends on several things. It depends on our genetic makeup. It depends on the environment around us, and it depends on our lifestyle. What we focus on with regard to risk reduction and prevention and maintaining our health as we age is what we can control. So we can't necessarily control our genetic makeup, and we can't always control what's happening in the environment around us, but we can control the lifestyle choices we make to keep our body and our brain healthy. So the one thing I want to point out in our discussion today, Ann, is that when it comes to our health, there is definitely, and research has shown this, there is definitely a connection between our heart health and our brain health. So what is that heart-brain connection in terms of the lifestyle choices we make? The heart and brain are connected because what the brain needs to function at its best is oxygen and blood flow. The way that the brain gets the oxygen it needs is through the blood flow. And that's why anything that we do to benefit or protect our heart health can directly benefit our brain health. So 25% of every heartbeat, the 25% of the blood that is pushed through the body with every heartbeat goes directly to the brain. So I want people to remember that there's definitely a connection between our heart health and our brain health. So anything that they're doing or can do, changes they can make to benefit their heart health will benefit their brain health.
And that's great. And before we go on to this next slide, it really is interesting that it's pointed out that it is definitely found related to Alzheimer's disease. We've known that that blood flow and doing things for our heart health so we prevent heart attacks, also the blood flow to the brain to help prevent strokes and things like that, really also has a relationship with that Alzheimer's disease. And that's fascinating. So looking at that and looking at your next slide. So what are the things, I guess, that we can do then to help maintain that brain health and then therefore our body health in that prevention piece for Alzheimer's?
Well, we look at when we look at healthy living and how it affects not only for our body, but for our brain as well, we break it down into 4 sections. So we have our physical health and exercise, we have diet and nutrition, we have cognitive activity, and we have social engagement. So let's start with physical exercise. What do we know? We know that cardiovascular activity may reduce, and when I say what we know, it's what we know from the research that has been done. So this is research-based. So I don't want anyone to think that myself or the Alzheimer's Association is making this up. So what we do know from research is that cardiovascular activity may reduce our risk of cognitive decline. And that means regular exercise that gets our heart rate up for at least 20 minutes. And that, because when we get our heart rate up, we increase that blood flow to the brain. And we were talking about how that brain needs that blood flow, needs that oxygen that the blood carries. So through physical exercise, we can get our heart rate up and increase that blood flow to the brain. That's so important. And even if it means seated exercise, when we say to someone, when we think about adding physical exercise to our lifestyle and our daily routine, it doesn't mean that we have to run out and join a gym and work out 5 days a week. It's whatever is appropriate for any one of us as individuals, and our abilities, our physical abilities and level of functioning. So, whether it's seated exercise, whether it's yoga, whether it's walking, going out and walking on a daily basis, whether it's gardening, it could be anything that is a form of exercise. We're not talking about just formal exercise in a gym. We're talking about any physical activity that gets us moving and gets our heart rate up. So,
and that's good to know because, we hear physical health and exercise and just trying to decide to do it or think that I have to go to the gym or I have to walk, so many miles a day is just daunting in its thought. So we don't do it. We don't even begin that plan.
Exactly. And so what we tell people is, if you're going to make these lifestyle choices, and we certainly hope people do make these lifestyle choices that can help to reduce risk, what we can do is, number one, we need to do something we like so that we do it and we do stick with it. So, I'm not a fan of running. I'm never going to go out and start a running routine in terms of my own physical exercise because that's just not appealing to me. But I may walk. I go outside. I like to garden. So it's important that we pick something that we like so that we will continue to do it. And it's also important, again, taking into account each individual's abilities at any given moment when they start this routine or start to add more physical activity to their lifestyle, is to start out small and gradually increase as we're able. So again, if I decide I'm going to add walking to my routine, it doesn't mean I'm going to go out the very first day and walk 10 miles. I may just walk to the end of the block and back. And I may walk to the end of the block and back for a week or two. And then maybe I'll walk to the end of the second block and back. And I'll gradually, as I build up stamina and my body gets used to this exercise being part of my routine, I will be able to build on that and add more in the future. So starting out small and gradually increasing our level of activity is good. Also, always keeping safety in mind. We know that head injury and brain injury can increase our risk of dementia. So if we're going to add any physical activity to our routine, like bike riding, or something where we need to take safety into consideration. It's important that we realize if we're going to start bike riding, we should wear a helmet, and be able to protect against head injury and brain injury. As far as, physical exercise in general, the real goal is to get our heart rate up and get that blood flow increased and pumping. So we want to do an activity that's going to get our heart rate up. I think it's also important that we do activities that we can do with others. So, if we're going to start walking, are there friends or neighbors or family that we can walk with, which makes the activity more enjoyable, makes it more, you almost don't realize what you're doing. So, you're walking with friends or family or neighbors, you're chatting and having conversation and enjoying the company. And next thing you know, you've walked 2 or 3 miles and you don't even realize how much you've done because of that social activity. Of course, checking with your doctor is probably a good idea if you're going to add, physical activity to your routine, and make sure that whatever you're doing is going to be safe for you where you are, depending on your own health. And there's some other things we can do in terms of physical health. Not just exercise. When you're thinking about physical health, that also includes, stop smoking. If you're smoking, that can help. Avoiding excess alcohol intake, getting adequate sleep and enough rest is important to our physical health. Managing stress. How do we manage stress? We all have stress in different forms. How do we manage that stress? Is it yoga? Is it reading? Is it meditation? How do we manage our stress? And certainly part of our physical health also includes getting treated for depression if we are experiencing that.
And Kelly, I think that some of those things to avoid in terms of smoking, less alcohol perhaps, and more sleep is all, again, ways to help reduce some of the risks that we know cause some of the problems in the brain. Also, I think going slowly and starting where we are is what's most important. We have classes, health and wellness classes, and we set goals for ourselves every week. And some of the folks focus on that physical health and exercise. And they have done things like just walk the perimeter of their garage, their driveway. And they do that once or twice in a day, and slowly they can graduate to multiple times around. I've had other folks who may be apartment dwellers in a building and are able to walk even with a neighbor down one hallway and then come back, or go up the steps or down the steps to that hallway and come back. So I think that all of that combined is a wonderful way to get us to begin at least thinking about and maybe making some sort of goal to begin something. Thank you.
Absolutely, Ann, and you're so true with physical health and exercise. It's not about, going to a gym 5 days a week. It's just about getting the body moving. When we look at the next section I want to look at is diet and nutrition. And what we know from the research about diet and nutrition is, as I mentioned earlier, what is good for the heart may also be good for the brain. So again, and I don't know that any of this information is, anything new that we haven't been told or heard throughout the course of our life with regard to healthy lifestyle choices. But of course, nutritious food, getting proper nutrition in our diet is what is the fuel for our brain and body. So following some, healthy dietary guidelines can certainly help reduce our risk, not only of Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, but also of heart disease and cancer and stroke and diabetes. So they're all kind of intertwined in what we put into our bodies. So what can we do with diet and nutrition? Well, certainly we can eat more vegetables. We can eat more healthy fruits. We can incorporate nuts and beans and whole grains into our diet, lean meats and fish and poultry and vegetable oils. So we can certainly, what we can do and what we can control is adding those healthier things into our diet. And again, starting out small and building. It doesn't have to mean a complete 180 change in how we eat. It's just a matter of, gradually over time, developing a taste for and kind of incorporating healthier items into our diet and replacing some of the frequency of the more unhealthy things that we consume.
I think in that situation too, one of the comments that I know from our health and wellness classes when we're talking about living with chronic diseases, some of the folks have identified that fruit is been hard to add to their diet for some reason. They just kind of forget about fruit. So even if it is, I'm going to add a piece of fruit, maybe start with every other day instead of every day, or at lunchtime or something, or make that change to using vegetable oils to cook instead of some other type. So just small things, as you said.
Exactly.
And then we can, what else quickly before we move on to another
Well, certainly avoiding those saturated trans fats, the processed foods. I know we've probably all heard people say, shop the perimeter of the grocery store where the fresh foods are. Avoiding solid fats, trying to cut back on sugar and salt intake, deep fried foods, and certainly those, unhealthy fast foods. I think, we hear a lot in terms of diets. I think one of the things we can look at when we're looking at making healthy changes to our diet are like the Mediterranean diet or the DASH diet. Both of those diets are really based on diets that emphasize fruit and vegetables and whole grains and lean proteins. So, if somebody's looking for suggestions, they can always look up Mediterranean diet and DASH diet for those type of things. So moving on to cognitive activity, what we do know, again, from the research, is that keeping our mind active forms new connections among brain cells. So even somebody already with a diagnosis of dementia can benefit from cognitive activity and staying mentally active. Because whenever we force our brain to think, it actually forms new connections between brain cells. So cognitive activity encourages blood flow to the brain. Mentally stimulating activities can help maintain and even improve cognition, even in someone with a diagnosis. And again, part of cognitive activity, engaging in education, can help keep our brain healthy as we age and protect against developing dementia. So what can we do with cognitive activity? We can read books. We can read magazines. We can continue to do those crossword puzzles or Sudoku or board games that might challenge our brain to think. We can learn new skills or hobbies. I think this is a great opportunity to do that thing that we always said we wanted to do, whether it's learn to play the piano or take that photography course, because I've always wanted to get better at photography. So, we talk throughout our lives about, I've always wanted to learn that, or I've always wanted to do that. And we put it off and we put it off and we put it off. So now's the time to do it. If you've always wanted to learn to paint, take a painting class, watercolor, whatever it may be, and engage in lifelong learning, whether it be a hobby, whether it be, Googling information about a country that you're fascinated with. Just keep learning as we age is important. And I did want to mention that there are, I believe here in our local area, I know Alvernia University used to have, and I think they still do. I don't know where it's at right now with coming out of COVID, but Alvernia University has a seniors college through which they offer classes and clubs for seniors age 55 and older. And that's a great way, again, to get some of that constant continuing cognitive activity and mental activity to keep our brain strong.
And Kelly, I think some of the things that I think of too, besides that, is going to talk, also kind of connects us with the social engagement. We have so many fascinating things here in Berks County. We've got the Reading Public Museum. we've got Berks History Center, we've got arts and culture and everything else right here, Goggleworks, that so many people can do. And I think it leads us into the combination too of trying something new, keeping our brain active, and then that social engagement. Can you just briefly talk about that social engagement piece of this?
Absolutely. Social engagement, what we know from the research is that social engagement is associated with living longer and living longer with fewer disabilities. Staying engaged in our communities offers us an opportunity to maintain life skills, and remaining both socially and mentally active in combination, as you mentioned, supports our brain health and may delay the onset of dementia. So what do we do with social engagement? We stay active, we stay connected. We continue to visit with friends and family and stay connected with our communities. We stay involved in the community. We join, like you said, we can take advantage of all the arts and culture opportunities in our community. We can join clubs. We can be part of groups. And if somebody's looking for a way to stay engaged, they can call the Alzheimer's Association. I've got plenty of volunteer opportunities that they could get involved in. And I think the combination of, when we're social, we're also getting a lot of those other pieces as well.
Exactly. And again, there's a lot to do that they can ask us for other resources. So looking at it, what should we need to do? We need a little bit of each of these, right?
We do. Putting all four together is the best thing we can do to incorporate a healthy lifestyle and keep our brains healthy. So what can we do today? We can start today. Number one, we can start today. It's never too late to start, no matter what age we are. So start today, start small and build on what you're doing. Do what you enjoy so that you stick with it. Do it with others, have fun with it, do it with family, do it with friends, do it with neighbors, make healthy choices, and just have fun. Do things that you enjoy and have fun, because then you'll really stick with it moving forward.
And I'm going to just touch before we go on this last slide is that I think that begin today can be just even looking something up, reading in the newspaper, oh, I saw, this is happening, or my friend told me about this, or I've seen things that are starting over here. Just even engaging yourself in finding that opportunity to do the social engagement. Where's the senior center? What do they have to offer? Typically educational piece, a good nutritional meal, social engagement. All of those things might be in a couple of places that you can get everything in one by making those connections, and looking at discussing it with a friend, a family member, neighbor, even as the support from others, so that they can maybe do it with you or look up those things, provide you with those resources as well. And then go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, as you mentioned, Ann, the opportunities are limitless, really, when you think about all that is going on in our community.
Absolutely. And they certainly can call our agency, the Berks County Area Agency on Aging, at 610-478-6500 for some other resources. And then I'm going to have you talk real quickly about this last slide, the resources for families in our community.
Absolutely. Well, certainly, they're welcome to call the Alzheimer's Association for resources. And certainly if, we were talking about risk reduction today and prevention, but certainly if someone out there was listening today and they have a loved one, or know someone, a friend at church, who's on the journey or has a diagnosis or concerns about Alzheimer's and other dementias, they're certainly welcome anytime to reach out to the association for information and resources. Our 24/7 helpline is probably the most accessible and easiest way that people connect with us. It's a toll-free helpline that's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. To answer any question or provide support and connect people to resources in the community. We have education programs, just like we're doing today, going on in the community. And that's one way to stay mentally active and socially engaged, is to come to programs and events that we have going on. We have support groups throughout the area if someone needs those. We just have a lot of different resources, both online and in the community. So people can certainly reach out to us for more information at any time, and we can help connect them to activities and resources in their community.
And Kelly, one of the things that occurred to me as you were talking about this was that, we're talking about perhaps somebody with Alzheimer's disease and trying to look at today's topic of the prevention and reducing risks. But I'm going to just add that oftentimes that individual has a support person, whether it be a spouse, a significant other, a very close family member, that is potentially is kind of like the caregiver eventually. And I think that person also, it's important that those four pieces of the whole, that they've also looked at that for themselves. And I think we have, as you mentioned, some support groups in the community for them, some other opportunities for them to engage themselves to maintain their health. And also, I want to mention that we have health and wellness classes that are focusing on better managing some chronic diseases, as well as some other improvements that they can also call our agency. And again, we have other information with our Berks County Area Agency on Aging. And here we have, again, the Alzheimer's Association 24/7 helpline of 800-272-3900. The website. And one last, anything else, Kelly, for one quick update reminder before we sign off?
Well, I just want to say thank you, Ann, for pointing out that maintaining, making our lifestyle choices healthier can benefit the person with a diagnosis to keep their brain as healthy as possible on the journey. And it's also very important for their caregivers to maintain their own health. Caregiving can be very stressful. So this topic is appropriate for really anyone, whether you have a diagnosis or not, in just making healthy lifestyle choices.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for being with us and sharing all this wonderful information. I appreciate your availability here in Berks County to us. And thanks everybody for tuning in to Aging Matters.
Aging Matters on BCTV is supported by the Berks County Area Agency on Aging.